Assistant Professor at Electronics Engineering Department at Walchand Institute of Technology, Solapur. Welcome you all in today's session on Open System Interconnection Model. At the end of this video, the student will be able to understand importance and functioning of OSI reference model. These are the contents that we are going to go through in this particular session. First of all, let us understand what is meaning of computer network. Computer network is a set of devices which is connected by communication links. As shown in the figure, you can see that different devices like modem, switches, workstations, Wi-Fi routers, all these devices, they are connected by a communication links and a network is formed. These are the basic components of computer network. There will be one message which is to be sent. So message is the first important component. Second is a sender, the one who will be sending that message. On the other end, there will be receiver who will be receiving that particular message. To send that particular message, one transmission media will be required, and then the last one, that is the protocol. Now let us understand what is meaning of protocol. Protocol, it is a set of rules and convention that state how data is transmitted and received across a network. So within a network, how the data will be exchanged between the sender and the receiver, that set of rules are nothing but called as protocols. OSI model. OSI model, it is said its long form as Open System Interconnection. It is a conceptual model created by International Organization for Standardization. Basically, this OSI model is nothing but a set of protocols. They control the communication channels through which network devices share information and the data. We will be discussing each of this layer of OSI model in details. To begin with, first we will discuss about the topmost layer, which is called as application layer. It is an interface between user and network application. Whenever a user wants to use any of the application on the internet or on the network, at that time it will be proceeded to the user with the help of application layer. As per the need of the application, required protocols are provided to present the data to user. In application layer, different applications can be accessed by the user, and to access them, there is a set of the protocols that is present in this application layers. For example, if there is a file transfer, then FTP protocol is used. If the user want to access some web pages from the internet, then HTTP or HTTPS protocol are utilized. When a mail is been sent from user, at that time it is using SMTP protocol, DHCP, Telnet, NFS. These are some of the different type of protocols which are present in the application layer. Next layer is nothing but called as presentation layer. The data received from the application layer is in the form of characters and numbers. So presentation layer, first it does the task of translation. Here those characters and numbers, they are converted into a binary format. The next task that is done by the presentation layer is data compression. Here, once these characters and numbers are converted into binary format, then the bits are reduced in the data compression. Another important function that is carried out by the presentation layer is data encryption and decryption. From the security point of view, to keep the data more secure, the data is encrypted and then only it is transmitted from the sender. At the receiving end, the data will be decrypted and then the original message will be retained by the receiver. The protocols that are basically utilized in presentation layer, one of the example is SSL, that is Secure Socket Layer. After application layer and presentation layer, the next layer in the OSI model is session layer. As the name itself suggests, a particular session is carried out in this particular layer. Basically, it sets and manages the connections in a network. It uses APIs to establish the connections between the two machines. The main functions that are performed by the session layers are authentication, authorization, and session management. Authentication. Before the session connection is established, here we will consider example of client server. Suppose we want to establish a connection between a client and a server, then it will be asking username and password for the login. So that itself is nothing but authentication. Next function is authorization. Whether the person who is going to access the file is he authorized person or not. So after authentication and authorization, then comes the part of the session management. In session management, when the user logs in, a session is created. The server, it uses the session ID to track the user activities. When the user logs out, the session is closed and the session ID is discarded, effectively ending the client server communication. So from these three functions, the session layer, it helps us in the way to manage a particular data. At first, it goes for the authentication, then it goes for authorization, and then the session management. The protocols that are utilized in session layers are net bias communication between the computers with the LAN. Another protocol is utilized which is called SCP, Session Control Protocol. Basically, it is utilized for the session management. Next layer after these three layers is called as transport layer. This transport layer, it controls reliability of communication. It performs the functions of segmentation, flow control, and error control. Segmentation. What exactly is the task of this function, that is segmentation? The data is divided into small segments. Each of the segments is given a sequence number so that the data can be reassembled in a correct order, forming a correct message at the receiver end. Port number are also assigned, which helps in selection of a proper application. So in segmentation, the data is divided into small segments. Sequence number is allocated so that it becomes easy for reassembling of the message at receiver, and the port number helps us in selection of a proper application as asked by the user. Second function is flow control. For example, if the data that is being transmitted from a machine is at the rate of 10 Mbps, but the data which is to be received at the receiver end is having capacity of only 5 Mbps. In this particular case, if you will see, the data which is being received by the receiver, here there are chances of data loss because the receiver is not having the capacity to accept the data at the speed of 10 Mbps. So transport layer here controls amount of data to be transmitted as per the capacity of the receiver. That much only data is being transmitted from the sender end. The next function is error control. Here in error control, automatic repeat request is generated if the message is not received at the receiver end. The checksum bits are added to each segment to find the received corrupted segments. So these are the three functions that are executed at the transport layer. The protocols that are utilized in transport layer are TCP and UDP, Transmission Control Protocol for connection oriented transmission, and User Datagram Protocol for connectionless transmission. Next layer is network layer. The network layer transmits the data between machines in a network. Here, the data units, they are called as packets. The functions that are performed by a network layer are packet creation, assembly, and network layer is basically responsible for data routing, forwarding, and addressing. Let us go stepwise what exactly process is carried out in network layer. The network layer, first it takes over and adds the logical IP address of the destination to each packet. In the next step, the packets are passed to the router where it reads the destination source IP address. In the third step, router uses routing tables to determine the best path for the data to take across multiple networks. This could involve passing through multiple routers between the sender and the receiver, possibly traversing different ISPs and network devices. In step 4, the packet is forwarded through the network and router in the path makes the decision where to send the packet next based on the destination IP. Finally, the packet reaches to the recipient's mail address. The protocols that are utilized in network layer are IP, that is Internet Protocol, it is responsible for routing and addressing. ICMP, that is Internet Control Message Protocol, for diagnostic and error reporting purpose. The next layer is data link layer. Here it makes sure that data is transmitted correctly over a physical medium. Now suppose that there are two networks, X network and Y network. Here the R1, R2 are nothing but the routers which are connected, and these are the two network topologies. One is star, one is bus. Suppose machine 2 wants to transmit the data to 5. At that time, this machine 2 here, machine 2 will be sending the data to the router 1, and then router 1 will be proceeding to router 2, and then it will send to the destination machine. But here data link layer is responsible only for checking whether the data is reaching from machine number 2 to R1. First, that particular section will be checked. It is not wholly responsible for checking whether the data is going from the sender PC, that is 2, to the destination machine. The functions which are carried out, that is nothing but node to node delivery. Means machine, first it verifies whether the data is coming from machine number 2 to R1, that is node to node delivery. Second function that is performed is framing. The data bits in data link layer are called as frames. Here it also functions related with the flow control and error control. Here it also verifies whether the receiver is having the capacity to handle the data which is being sent by the receiver. In error control, before the data reaches to the destination, earlier only, as it performs node to node delivery, earlier only the error gets detected and it is controlled. It is also having the access control and physical MAC address. So data link layer, it uses the protocols, that is Ethernet and point-to-point protocols. The final layer from the OSI model is physical layer. In physical layer, here the actual connections between the devices are generated or they are made. It is responsible for actual physical connection between the devices and responsible for transmitting individual bits from one node to the next. The protocols that are utilized in physical layer are Ethernet, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth and USB. So this was the session that is related with OSI reference model. The references were taken from Andrew Tannenbaum reference book. Thank you.